Good afternoon, everybody. So my name is Peter Hannep, and I work for the SONY Computer Science Laboratory. And we're working in a European project called Robotics for Microfarms. And you can see all the partners on the first slide there. Maybe first, just a quick word about what is SONY CSL. We're a fundamental research lab, which means that we almost function as an academic lab. We work on long-term ideas, not so much on products, and also all of our work is the initiative of the researchers themselves, so it's not requests that come top-down to work on a specific topic. And so since a couple of years, we started working on sustainable small-scale farming, and in particular, we started working on a small robot for market farms. You can see a picture here. As you can see, these are organic market farms, relatively small in size, that grow a lot of different crops in a single season. And these challenges in themselves are very interesting to deal with the robotics platform. The current prototype of the robotic platform looks like this. The architecture is fairly simple, fairly straightforward. Our idea is to make it a really low-cost solution, something that you can almost build yourself, and that possibly is adaptable to several applications. The first application that we worked on is weeding, and if you've been through the exhibition stands, you can see the robot there, and you can see the weeding application in action. I'll go show you very briefly how it works. So this is the algorithm that was developed by my colleague David. So in the robot, there's a top camera that looks at the soil below the robot. And then just using segmentation based on color, we detect the crops. We suppose that we do a weeding quite regularly, so we can just do a segmentation or a classification based on the size of the plants to distinguish between crop and weeds. And then the robot calculates a path for a rotating weeding hoe that will go around the plants and perturb the small weeds at the surface of the soil. So you can see the small, the rotating weeding hoe here. And so I would invite you to go and see the demo in the exhibition space. Now, as a side effect of the weeding, of course, we're collecting a lot of data as well. And one thing that we can do is stitch this data together to have an image of the whole vegetable bed over time. And already we can use this to calculate indicators, for example, what is the amount of weeds in the field, to possibly optimize the weeding algorithm to see where we're going to send the rover. This algorithm also works on the robots. Some of our partners work on airborne devices, doing pretty much the same type of image analysis. So airborne devices can be like a drone, can be a camera attached to a cable or a rail that, for example, a rail in a greenhouse to collect this data. Because the weeding algorithm does the segmentation of the plants, so we basically have information on the size of each individual plant. And this is interesting to start looking at about what is the growth curve of the individual plants, what are the growth curves of the population of plants, and we can pretty much identify each plant in the field. Now, this is something that we can do now. The next step is, how are we going to use this data? Can we apply tools to detect which plant is behind in growing, for example, and then alert the farmer? Or will we do something more interactive, like develop a farmer's dashboard, present the data fairly clearly, accessibly to farmers, so that possibly they can annotate the data or spot, where in the field things are going wrong and what we should be looking for. So this will be like the next step that we have to think about. How do we use this data? This is 2D data, of course, 2D data doesn't tell you everything. It works quite well on small plants or vegetables like lettuces. It would be more difficult to, for example, look at basil. And we're working also on a number of technologies to look at the architecture of the plant in 3D. So you could do something like this. You have a plant, you take a number of images of this plant, and then you reconstruct it in 3D. A fair amount of people do this, and there are software tools available for that. It's called Photogrammetry. People who collect images from drones also take this approach. But what you have on the right-hand side is this 3D representation as a cloud of points. It doesn't give you much information about the structure of the plant. And trying to extract the information from this point cloud in itself is still a very active research topic. So what we started to do, we started to take a different approach, developed by my colleagues Tim and Eleanor. First thing is to, instead of using photogrammetry, use a slightly simpler technology called space carving. In each of the images, you try to detect the plant. You know the position of the camera, and using the profile of the plant in an image and its position, you can sort of carve into a volume, and bit by bit, as the camera moves along the plant, you carve away more and more say material from your block, and you end up with a single volume. So instead of a point cloud, you get a volume which is already more useful than the point cloud. But we went a bit further. We started using machine learning to do segmentation directly on the 2D images that we get. So from a single photo, we detect the organs in each 2D image. So we label every pixel in background or stem or flower and so on. We can do this for each individual image and then project the segmented images into 3D. And we obtain directly not only the volume but also the individual organs of the plant. And here things become interesting. Now we can start measuring things like how many leaves are there, what's the surface of the leaves, how many fruits are there, what size are there, what are the angles between the main stem and the secondary stems. Right now we're still doing this in a fairly controlled environment, indoor, in the lab. We try to validate our method against scientific data from people working in phenotyping and plant science. And our hope is that in the next 1 to 2 years, we will be able to bring this out into the field to start collecting 3D data in the field. Again, the question will be, how do we use this data to provide useful information to the farmer, which is actually not an easy task. What do we look at? How do we analyze this data? But the technology is gradually evolving, and if there are people interested in using this, we will be very happy to collaborate. Most of the tools that we've developed is open source, open hardware, so we're very open about working together on this. Okay, thank you very much.